welcome to my channel, Past the Fog, where I deal with the tactics that sociopaths and narcissists use on their targets in order to gain the upper hand on their target or in order to manipulate their target or destroy their target. So today I am going to be talking about sabotage. This is a tactic that narcissists and sociopaths use on their target. It's often very subtle. It is caused to sabotage the victim through false information and also to get the victim to sabotage themselves through gaslighting. So I'm going to read a sentence from an article, actually two sentences from an article I found on the internet, and I'm gonna put a link to the article below. It's an excellent article, and this woman who wrote this, she obviously dealt with the same person that I dealt with. So the sentence says, "The art of the subtle sabotage, much like the art of the pity ploy, is used to stage an environment of psychological warfare." So it's subtle sabotage, and they also use the pity ploy in order to get enablers and flying monkeys and minions to do their bidding. And the subtle sabotage is used to stage an environment of psychological warfare against their target. It's very subtle, but the target definitely starts to feel like something's wrong, something's going on. It's a set of manipulations within the abuse cycle that leads to an elaborate game of chess. So as you are in a situation with a malignant narcissist or covert narcissist or sociopath, you will start to feel like you are playing a game of chess. Although initially you won't know that you're even in a game. It will not even occur to you that they are playing a game with you. And that's why it catches you by surprise, and that's why we're often totally thrown off, and eventually we feel like we are losing our minds because we never realized we were in a game of chess. We never realized that this whole thing was a big mind, game that they were doing with us just to gain the upper hand on us and just to undermine us throughout an entire situation, so that if anything ever comes out or anything, they have now alibis and people around them, and they said this and they didn't do this and they said this. It's all a setup so that they can win. It's all a setup. Any notes you receive from these people, it's a setup to sabotage you, to make you look like you were doing something, or make you look like the person that was at fault. And through the gaslighting abuse that goes on, where they're rewriting the narrative in their minds and in yours, they know what really happened, but they're pushing out a certain narrative so that you'll grab onto that narrative too, and you'll latch onto it, and you'll think that's happening too. So then you begin to self-sabotage, and you think that what they're saying, oh, so this happened, and then you begin to defend yourself against something that isn't even happening, against a false script that's being pushed out against you, and you just can't believe it's even happening. The problem is, with the psychological warfare that's going on and all the gaslighting that's going on, you may eventually just collapse and begin to blame yourself for everything, even if you don't know what's being said about you, because you figure out some lies, but then there's a mountain of lies that they hide from you, and you don't even know all those lies because these people. The irony is they accuse you of lying, and if you've messed up at all and you've confessed it, they're gonna just focus on that. They're gonna, times that by 10, times that by 100. They're gonna portray you as somebody you're not, and then they're gonna withhold from any listeners all the stuff they were doing, all the lies they were saying, all the exaggerations they were spewing out about you. And oftentimes, like, in the gaslighting scenario, the irony of the whole thing is that some of the things they accuse you of almost become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they'll say, oh, well, that person this was not said about me, but they'll say, that person has a problem with anger. That problem, or they'll tell you you have a problem, or they'll gossip about you. And then in public, they will try to trigger that anger by poking you or something, you know, little jabs or gaslighting you or saying something they know that's going to provoke you so that you do erupt in public. And then they'll say, look, see, and it just proves their point that's exactly who you are, exactly what they're saying you are. They do it through gaslighting and the sabotage and everything that's going on. It's a type of witchcraft. I really, truly believe this. It's a witchcraft being used against one person. Somebody usually very naive, doesn't have a clue that there are people like this out there that operate like this. And the irony is they're going to point their finger and say, no, that's how you are. No, that's not how you are. You don't even think like that. And if you made any mistakes, you confess to them. And even if you did make mistakes, you never deserved to be treated the way you ended up being treated. You never deserved a smear campaign to be run against you. So every step the victim takes, I'm reading the article, every step the victim takes, he or she is blocked from getting to the destination. Each move is carefully watched and evaluated so that the other player can learn to provide a buffer between the victim's movement and their intended goal. So in my situation, like there was, how they would buffer it would be, well, that's because she's Jamie's friend. That's because, you know, they've talked to her. And so that was the buffer. Well, if they hadn't talked to her, then this would never have been said, or this never, well, that's not true. So they're leaving out so much information, and they're going to smear you so badly that people won't come to you to make sure, you know, that they have the right information, that they have the full picture here, because that's their whole goal, is to control the narrative that's coming out. And so they do everything they can to isolate and discredit their target. And this is the whole sabotage. They set you up in a scenario. You don't even realize you're being set up. Like in my instance, I had a situation where there was a conversation going on in a room with a malignant narcissist. Don't ever have a conversation with them alone. Make sure there is a witness there, because it was sort of in a hushed tone we were talking, and he walked away from that conversation, and instead of being honest about what that conversation was about, he lied, and he pushed it out the way he wanted it to come out. And so unfortunately for me, I was dealing with 3 of these type of people, and they're often in groups because they are, the pathology, I think, is attracted to each other. At least you will find a lot of people saying this, that they dealt with maybe a family group like this, or like they were ganged up on in school by bullies, or people that use these similar tactics to gain advantage of other people. So in my situation, I had a sociopath and a malignant narcissist and a covert narcissist, or a borderline, one or the other. So a sociopath, this sociopath who happened to be related to this person, was in the hallway. He heard me say like 6 words, took it out of context, ran with it to support his brother. The brother never corrected him, so a whole false, I ended up just getting smeared, like, and they used all these techniques like stonewalling, gaslighting, pretending to love me when they clearly did not. They set me up in the situation so that, you know, they did certain things to set me up because certain people weren't doing exactly what they wanted. And if people weren't doing exactly what they wanted because they think it needed to be done the way they wanted it to be done, then they would get punished, belittled, silent treatment, that kind of thing, shaming. So, you know, I was the main target, but there were a couple other people going through this with me from these people. Just, once again, if you don't do what they want, they punish you, they set you up, they blame you. So why do they do this? Why do they do this to targets? Why? This is the big question. Why? Well, they want power over you for their egos. They want to have it come out a certain way. Their egos are very fragile. They want to be seen a certain way, grandiose, and they want to be seen as the victim. They want to be seen as the hero in the situation. So they start very subtly, and they do it along the whole entire situation, and you do not realize it's going on. They are very cleverly and subtly undermining you and manipulating the situation in their favor, so that if the situation ever comes out, then it's going to look a certain way, because like I said, they've created alibis in the people around them. It's a type of witchcraft against their target, so that nobody will believe you when you try to expose them. Yeah, that's not always the best choice to do, because they have to win. They don't even think about sitting down and having a conversation with you like a human being, treating you with humanity or anything like that. They only want to win. They have no moral compass. They will do whatever it takes to win. They will blame you for things that they're doing, and then they'll turn around and cry to their audience so that they can get pity. It's very interesting, and they devalue you as a person, and they diminish you. That's part of it, is the devaluing and diminishing of their target, so that their target will then begin to view themselves through the eyes of the abuser. So we often really care about our abuser, not always, but in many cases, we care about the person who's abusing us. So we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. We don't want to look at them as like this monster that we keep kind of getting a peek at. We keep getting a glimpse of this monster. And we're just like, no, it can't be that way. You know, I must be misunderstanding something. But then once everything starts to happen and they twist the story on us, we realize, oh my gosh, I am dealing with a monster, and I am dealing with an evil person. And it's really, really hard to take who you thought this person was, and then who this person really is, which is all about themselves. They're just completely about themselves. If you don't do what they want, if you don't say what they want, if you don't obey them, if you do anything to cause a narcissistic injury, they're doing tons to you, by the way. But if you do anything even small, you're going to pay for it. You're going to go down, and they're going to make you pay for it. So they've already set you up. And it's not just the false narrative that comes out that's so painful, and they're undermining you throughout the entire situation. Like the malignant narcissist I dealt with he played off of my empathy and my compassion. He knew I would cover for him, which was dumb of me. He knew what I would do for him, and so he had already set me up throughout the whole narrative. It's not just that they do that. It's the gaslighting. So the gaslighting, where it's sort of and many of you have been in these situations where they're like, well, how dare you do that? And how dare you do that? And how could you do that? You know, you're ruining blah, 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 and you're doing this. And so we targets who are often very empathetic, or we're people pleasers, or we're neurotic, or whatever. We just look at ourselves and we're like, oh yeah, you're right. How dare I do that? And how dare I do this? And oh my gosh, this must all be all my fault. And we start, this is all my fault. That's right. It is all your fault. That's right. It's all your fault. You know, and they just begin, and then they call us names, and they label us, and then they walk around telling their tale of woe to everyone that will listen, and they make it sound like you are the one that destroyed them, because maybe eventually you tried to get a voice, and you're like, wait a second, you know, you guys are manipulating me, you know, because we realize eventually, most of us in the situation, were being used, and we didn't know we were being used. I mean, these are people we generally care about, and we want to give them their humanity. Are they really that evil? Really? Like, would you really do that to someone? Oh yes, there are people that will set you up. There are people that will not want to sit down and make sure they're understanding everything correctly. There are people that they just don't care. They don't care about you. And that's hard when we care about them. And so anyone that's listening to this and you're going through this and maybe you're just so distraught because you cared about these people and you just can't believe what they did to you, and you're blaming yourself because maybe if I hadn't done that, and if I hadn't done this, and if I had just said this, maybe I would be accepted, maybe I would be cared about, maybe they would hear me out. Well, I hate to break it to you, but in my experience, and I think many other people who've gone through this will tell you, they're just not going, you got to stop blaming yourself. Take responsibility for anything you did wrong. But then after that, you know, you got to remember you're human and we all make mistakes. And don't blame yourself unnecessarily. Don't hand them your pearls. Don't go crying at their feet. Don't continue to apologize up and down for everything that offends them, because they're offended by everything. You know, if you're dealing with a borderline, my goodness, you're just walking on eggshells trying not to get them upset, and no matter what you do, you're double-minded, and no matter what you do, you're doing the wrong thing, you know. Somehow they've made it that whatever move you've made is the wrong move. Even if you're trying with all your heart to please them and do whatever they want and you're trying really hard, well, they're still going to find a way to set you up for misdeeds and set you up so that they can say, well, then she did this, and then she did this. And these people, you know, there's a type of evil that actually thinks it's good. And that's the worst type of evil. And that's these people go around saying, well, we were faithful in all of this, and we tried to love her, and we were very concerned about her, and we prayed for her, and blah, 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 blah. And so there is a type of evil that thinks it's good, and it is so evil, and you've experienced it. You know how the narrative was played with. You know how the narrative got twisted, and how you were brainwashed. You know you were brainwashed. You know you were being used and gaslighted. Once you start researching all of this, you're like, that's what happened to me. And I've said this in another video, and I really believe this is witchcraft. This is witchcraft, and it's hard when we survivors try to explain this to people, because most people just don't understand that there are people like this out there. And so they're going to play the good guy. They're going to play, you know, the wonderful people, and they will tell their sob story and cry and blah, blah. And they get all this pity for themselves and support. And it's just unfortunate because they kind of in a way get away with it. And it's just, you know what happened. And maybe a few people around you understand what happened, but it's a very traumatic thing to go through. So I just encourage you to know that you're not alone if you're watching this and you've gone through it. There's other people out there, we've gone through it, and we're trying to recover, all of us together, by binge watching YouTube videos of other people that have gone through it. Because it doesn't really seem like many counselors or pastors, or not many people seem to understand this. So it feels like the only community that understands or even wants to understand this is other victims of narcissistic and sociopathic abuse. And maybe if you're lucky, a couple close friends that really care about you. So, you know, and the thing is that's sad is, like, the malignant narcissist I was dealing with, he took a sadistic pleasure out of all of this. He was happy with himself. He was sadistic about it. He was glad he pulled off a big, massive manipulation. He was glad he had me, and it seemed like others, on kind of puppet strings doing his work, and another person involved. She also seem to just have people on, you know, puppet strings doing her work and doing her bidding by omitting crucial information in the situation. And they omit information on purpose because they don't want anybody to see your humanity. They don't want anyone to know that you are actually a loving, kind, compassionate person, and that you're nothing of the person that they've portrayed you as, or even as the person maybe you at moments acted like, because you were so upset by everything. But in fact, you're the opposite, and you are, you know, but they don't want people to see that. They don't want people to know that about you, because then they won't, you know, they won't get people to go fight for them and do their bidding for them. So they're going to portray you in the worst possible light, and they're going to leave out, so they're going to just completely erase the real narrative, and they're going to replace it with a different narrative, and it's completely false. There's not two sides of a story in these type of situations. People say there are. No, there's not. There is somebody that's trying to tell the truth, somebody who wants to talk it out, somebody who wants to reconcile to some degree, maybe. And then there are people that want to hide their demons. They want to hide, they play in secret. They are secretive, and they play in the dark, and they hide everything so that, you know, just so that they can sabotage you, so you have no clue really what's being said. You have no way of defending yourself. And they portray you as somebody that you're not. And in actuality, if anyone were to really look deep into the situation, they would see that they are what they are accusing you of. So that's kind of the irony of this type of a situation, and being set up, being talked about, gossiped about behind your back, all of this gaslighting, stonewalling, baiting and bashing, word salad games. There's a lot of different techniques they use on their target to gain the upper hand on their target, and that is their whole goal, is to win and gain the upper hand. They don't want to just win one conversation. They want to win the whole entire situation. The whole entire thing is a game to them. They do not care about you. They are using you. And if you are a target, my guess is you're probably a decent person. So, you know, just find comfort in that. You're probably a very decent person, and a very loving, compassionate person who really didn't want to hurt anyone. And you kind of were put in a position of where, you know, it was a tough position you were put in, and it brought out sides of you probably didn't even know existed, because you just were not prepared for this type of evil. You weren't prepared for a big sabotage against you and a smear campaign and all that. So I hope that helps educate you a little bit on sabotage and how narcissists and sociopaths sabotage their victim, and they often will do it together. This could be in a family, it could be in a church group, it could be in a business, but, you know, sometimes these people do attract each other. Their pathologies, like you find them in cults, you know, little cult groups where they brainwash and they work together and they kind of break people down, and they get them so worn out that the person just goes along with what is ever being said, and they kind of go into this, they're believing they're cult leader, they're worshiping the malignant narcissist often, or the sociopath, and they're not thinking straight. So I hope this helps educate you on sabotage and how sociopaths and narcissists use it against their victims. Thank you for watching Past the Fog. I hope you have a good day.